The Road Traffic Management Corporation is urging scholar transport operators to ensure their vehicles are roadworthy to transport pupils. Let's speak about this further now and speak to Advocate Makhosini Msibi, who is RTMC's CEO. Let me thank you so much for your time this evening. What are some of the offences that you've seen on the roads from scholar transport operators?
Thank you again for having us. In terms of the scholar transport, there are commonalities that you are frequently identified. One, it starts with the drivers themselves, their roadworthiness in terms of having them renewing their driver's licenses. Some of them drive with driver's licenses that have expired as long as 2017. And this is simply because most of them have infringements and they can no longer afford to renew, where you find that the person, the infringements amounts to about 2,000 or 3,000, and most of them opt not to renew, and to that extent then they become unroadworthy in terms of being the drivers. But the second one is the vehicles themselves. Most of the scholar transport owners or drivers or service providers, you will find that most of their vehicles are unroadworthy. One, it starts with the age of the vehicle. Most of them will opt for the vehicles that are even more than 10 years old. You will find that the vehicle has not been taken for testing for roadworthy. And some of them are cutting corners in terms of fraudulently obtaining what you refer to as in terms of the roadworthiness certificates. They will go to the fraudulent operators and then acquire such fraudulent roadworthy certificates. And most of the vehicles will find that their tires are worn out, and it takes them time, or they will opt to use some of the tires that are getting from the street vendors, which tires in themselves are no longer worthy or roadworthy. And some of the vehicles that you're talking to, you'll find that they don't even have seat belts. But most disturbing is the fact where you will find that in the motor vehicle, they have more than 25 scholars.
Yeah.
Where a vehicle is designated to take about 15 or 16, you find them having about 30 of the passengers, simply because these are kids or these are small children. They pack them as sardines within the motor vehicles.
Okay, so there's a couple of questions that arise from what you've just said. So let's go through them very quickly then. The issue of fraudulent certificates, are they working with department officials here, or are they simply going to some other avenues?
Well, you know that we have private testing stations themselves. They will work with those people that are working within the private testing stations, but that does not even exclude some of our officials within our government testing centers. There are those elements that are rogue and very corrupt, and they will then ensure that they give them the roadworthy certificates.
All right, and then two then, are these vehicles that would be private scholar transport vehicles, or some of them are contracted to the department as well?
Most of them are contracted within the department's scholar transport subsidy system, and some of them are those people that make their private arrangements, where a person has perhaps went out on pension or he has acquired some money, then he buys the kumbi and he gets into the scholar transport and mobilizes for himself.
So I'm just battling to understand it. How does a department then allow someone who hasn't ticked all the boxes to be contracted with them to then ferry children to and from school?
There are two categories. There are those that are private, who have not entered into any contract with the government. They're doing it privately.
Yes.
So government or the department has no say into this. The second category, it's where they are within the scholar transport themselves. The department will run what we have, the checklist, and will then run the roadworthy at that time. The first instance, you will find the vehicle qualifying, but the subsequent ones, you will find them obtaining it illegally, but it will be a valid roadworthy, but the vehicle would not have been submitted to the testing center to have the vehicle tested.
That is fraudulent. That is actually fraudulent. People should be behind bars for that.
It is exactly the point that we're working for. Let me make a typical example so that you see how deep the wrath is. You'll recall that we had an accident out in Pongola of a truck that killed 21 students. That truck obtained a roadworthy certificate in Kimberley, but it was never in Kimberley. On the day that the roadworthy was issued, that vehicle was in Richards Bay. So this is a common phenomenon of fraudulent activities that are finding themselves and playing themselves out within the transport industry.
So what then, how does a parent then empower themselves? Because let's say as a parent, I'm seeing this vehicle that is not roadworthy, but I now have to surrender my child because my child has to go to school. What powers do I have then?
That's the clarion call that we're making to the parents, that do not allow a child to get into a vehicle that is unroadworthy, where visibly you can also identify this vehicle is unroadworthy. Please report such people, both to the department, to the law enforcers themselves, and also we have a toll-free number where you can then report to us and we'll waylay such vehicles and impound such vehicles.
All right, we'll definitely need to try and follow up on this one with the department, because it's quite concerning to hear, some of what you've just told us this evening, and certainly let's see what happens with this particular issue, but we will try to give the department a right of reply here and also understand from their vantage point what exactly is going on here. That was Advocate Makhosini Msibi, RTMC CEO.